What's going on, guys? This is Jimmy.
Hey guys, Rachel here.
Thank you guys so much for joining us on Relationship Real Talk.
If y'all could only see what goes on just before we go live, we was having our own little party. Sometimes
Yeah.
it just happens like that.
That was funny.
That was funny.
Yeah,
You enjoyed that?
I did.
You gonna do it again?
No.
I didn't think so.
But yeah, guys, thank you all again for joining us. Look, as usual, we want you guys to share, like, comment. You know what you all do. Just come on in the living room and
Come
join
on
us.
in the living room. Now listen, today, although we said it's for the singles and we were asking for our single people, because we do have single people who listen to us, but sometimes when they hear what we do, they think it's only for married people.
Mhm.
So today we definitely want to single out, no pun intended,
That was
our
a good
single
one.
people to come and listen. You just might get something today, but married people's going to get something from this too. So we want you to pause for the cause right now and think of three people minimum that you think could benefit from this conversation. Three single people, three married people. Just think of some people and go ahead and share this broadcast with them. If you feel like repping your city, if you're in a different city today, if you've never watched us, go ahead and rep what city. Oh, I see the love coming through. Thank you
Yes.
so much for giving us some love. But we are excited today, are we not?
We are. We are. Also, I want to remind you guys that we would love for you, especially the singles that's going to be joining us today. If you have some questions and you want to be on air with us, just put in the comment section, I want to come in the living room.
I want to come in the living room now.
And we will send you a message in your inbox so you can come in the living room, and we will bring you on so you can
Yes.
either ask your question live or make your comment live. We would love
Right.
to involve you all into the show. You
Into
know, this
the
social
show.
distancing, we can still get close.
Yeah, virtually. And
Virtually,
the thing is,
yes.
we're going to take care of you. We're not going to have you come in the living room and not mistreat you and not be good hosts
And not mistreat you?
hostesses and mistreat you. My apologies. We're not going to have you come up in here and not treat you like we
Right.
would if you were actually
That's
in
right.
our living room.
What's
right?
up, Carla?
We're going to be good hosts and hostesses.
Yes.
We're going to have a good time in the name of the Lord. And so we don't want y'all to be afraid. If you got to come on in the living room, you just come on up in here. I see the MIA is represented here.
Yes.
Do we have the ATL here? Do we have the NYC? Do
all
we
of
have
those?
what do I call it? LOU for Louisiana, your hometown?
No, LA.
LA. I was just trying to stay with the three.
Mm.
Do we have the MON for Monroe?
Just say Who That Nation.
Where the Who That Nation at?
There we go.
I mean, they didn't play today, but
That's
I
all right.
figured
We play tomorrow. We watched those.
Okay.
What was those decaying birds called? That lost
Did-
again today in the fourth
You know
quarter?
what? I'm not going there with you.
Oh.
I'm not starting nothing with you today.
They bad. I'm sorry.
What's that? I'm not even gonna do it. I'm not gonna get into that football. Okay, Camille was like ATL with the exclamations. Yes, we want to shout out Camille because without her, she has been our conduit
yes.
to the singles.
Yes.
And she helped us, with these questions. These questions literally did not come from her. They came from the singles that were on the Facebook page. And we're
Yes.
just so excited to be able to have this conversation with you guys. And we want to be able to continue to keep it real with them.
So what is the show about today?
Well,
For
I
those who may
mean,
not.
there's a variety of questions that we have, but they're gonna come from, how do you know somebody is the right one, to when should you call it quits? How do you deal with conflict? When is it a good time, if you have children, for that significant other or individual to meet your children. So, I mean, we're going to pretty much cover the full gamut. And so, even if you're not going to come on in the living room, we want that participation in the chat. As a
Mhm.
matter of fact, our best shows are the ones where our people are involved, they're commenting, they're sharing, and we're just having a good time together.
I agree
So
wholeheartedly.
we ready to have a good time with them, babe?
We are. I think this is going to be interesting because single people are always asking us, "What about us?
What
When
about
y'all
us?
going to do something for the single people?"
And let me
So
just say
today
this.
you have it.
Yeah, and here's the other thing, and we've said this before. Single people who want to get married should be listening to Marriage Broadcast, because those are the people that are experienced and have been through it and have some good counsel. So that's where you should be. That's where your hand should be on that pulse. Nothing
Amen.
wrong with having conversations with other single people, because that's healthy too, to support one another. But my oh my, it's nice to, be in the midst of people who don't mind keeping it real and being able to support one another as
There's
we go through this journey together.
there's an old adage, you don't know what you don't know. And I promise you, most of us don't
Mm-mm.
know things because we don't ask the right people.
That's right.
And so
That's
today
right.
we're going to do our best. And listen, guys, whatever responses we give to your questions does not mean that these are the only ways
There we go. Give that
that this
disclaimer.
can be done. We're just going to give you our personal opinions based on experiences and
Research and
research and expertise. So that's the way we're going to approach this. So let's get on into this thing,
and we're
'cause
going to keep it biblical, because we
yeah,
are Christians and that is our
true,
platform.
true. I
Although
mean,
we know there are non-Christians that might listen as well.
well, we're and I believe that we have to be well rounded. We're going to be
Right.
practical and
Right. The principles
principle-based,
can be applied
yes, in a practical
regardless
manner.
of your religious orientation or affiliation.
There we
How
go.
about that?
There we go.
All right. All right. Jasmine Taylor. Somebody said, come on in the living room, Jasmine Taylor. All right. Listen now. We'll let you just drop it in there and he'll send you an invite. The invite goes to their Facebook Messenger. Is that where it goes?
Yes, I'll
All
send
right.
it to their Facebook Messenger. Yeah.
All right. All right. So our first question, baby, and I'll let you tackle this one. I'll ask
Oh
it and I'll
wow.
let you tackle it. I mean,
Okay.
I can't do
Go
both
ahead.
now.
Go ahead.
All right. How did you know this was the man or woman you should marry? So let me kind of change that to, how would one know
Mm-hmm.
if that is the man or woman that you should marry? So we just coming out the door with a
Out the
heavy hitter.
gate.
Yeah, right out the gate with a heavy hitter. Go
So
for it,
so you
babe.
want me to go first?
I want you to go first. Go
Well,
for it.
well, for me, um, I think a combination of things happen. First and foremost, once I saw you and kind of was like, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I did ask God. I was like, okay, God, because I don't want to just involve anyone into my life, especially with the newborn and all that good stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so God kind of gave what God does with me is He give me a sense of peace about stuff.
Okay.
If I have concerns and issues, I know it's not of God,
Right.
and I learn to walk away. But
Right.
for me, I ask God, is she the right one? You know, He didn't tell me about all the other challenges I would have, but He did give me that sense of peace.
Wait.
He
I
did.
think that was a throw under the bus, but
He
that's
did.
okay. Well,
He did
I
give me.
digress.
He really did give me a sense of peace
Mm-hmm.
about pursuing you, and so for me, it was God giving me that sense of peace, saying, "Yep, that's the right move."
And here's the thing, and I think we got to break it down as it relates to what are the things that give individuals a sense of peace. Because for me, since you were the one that was pursuing,
Mhm.
um, I first of all, I didn't just jump right to it the minute I saw he was trying to pursue. For those of you who heard the story in the first episode of this series,
Mhm.
he was he sent out several hints or what have you, and I was leery because he had lost his wife and had a brand new baby, and I just don't believe in jumping into a situation if I feel like somebody has, and I didn't even look at him as like he had baggage, but I knew there was a lot that he was having to deal with and process and even get himself together. So I wasn't even on that mindset. It really was
Mhm.
a mindset of, let me continue to pray for him and his family. But I will say this, once, I did go on a date and we did start dating. For me, the boxes that are checking are, first of all, do we have the same core values?
Yep.
Are our beliefs the same? And just because somebody has the same beliefs as you doesn't mean
That y'all gonna mesh.
that you're going to mesh or that
Right.
you're going to marry,
Right.
but the same core beliefs. Making sure I put him in the midst of my family and friends. How is that mixing together?
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, literally hearing from God, like giving me the signal to move forward in the relationship.
Right.
And the reason why I knew it was a signal from God was because I, it wasn't. for me, I don't know anybody else's experience. For me, many times when God is telling me something, it's not always the thing that I've been trying to push towards.
Mm.
It's usually something that I'm like sitting on
Yeah, he's challenging you
or
there.
resisting. And I think I wasn't resisting, I was just kind of sitting still. And that's important. Be still and know that he is God. He can make it happen for you. You don't have to make it happen.
Right.
And so when I was being still, that's when I could hear his voice. And like I told them that time I spoke about us, and the first time, we met and was talking, was that he told me, Rachel, the things that he has said to you are the things you've asked me for. So what are you waiting for and what are you afraid of? So it did give me a sense of peace. I didn't have to give him a lot of instructions as it relates to how to mesh into our blended world, because I had had children. And so just for any of you who are listening, how do you know somebody is the right one? You have to test it against those things that you value.
Your core values.
You
And I was going
know?
to say that too, the areas of compatibility. And I don't want to sound so spiritual that I'm forgetting the practical, because
Yeah,
practically speaking, I did a lot of investigating on you.
I know. I
I
call it stalking, but
yeah,
you
you
call it
call it whatever you want.
investigating.
But anyway, I had to make sure that we were compatible,
Right.
first and foremost. Were we compatible? Because as you stated earlier, just because we share the same core beliefs, just because we um, go to the same church, just because we do all
Right.
these things, doesn't necessarily mean we're going to work as a unit.
Right. And
and
let
and
go ahead.
so
I'm
and
sorry.
so those things are very, very important. Single people, don't focus so much on how you feel and what they're saying and what they're doing. Look at all of the areas of compatibility, and I love to say there are 5 areas. I think we should mainly look at: spiritually, are you spiritually compatible? Are you financially compatible? Are you socially compatible? Are you mentally compatible? And then I will say,
Is it financial? Oh,
well,
educationally?
I thought I said financial already.
Maybe so,
And
babe.
then, well, if I didn't say financial, financial will be the
If
fifth
not
one.
educational.
Right, because we have to connect on those areas, because those normally become areas of contention.
That
You
is
know,
true.
there is nothing more challenging in a relationship if you got one that's trying to grow and the other one that's stagnant.
Right,
I mean, it
right.
seems like, my God, you content with just, So we have to make sure that we're compatible in those areas, and if we are, you know, the chances of that relationship having success is greater.
It's greater. And let's not ignore, of course, you want to be attracted, physically
Well,
attracted.
that's
I mean,
yeah, that's where the physical comes
yeah,
in.
yeah. And you mentioned it, but I just kind of wanted to
Yeah,
unpack it for a second because it's easy for us to sit back. I think we all, that is the initial thing we see. Physically, we want to be. I'm a teeth person, and like if the teeth don't look hygienic and things of that nature, I'm automatically turned off. To where I may not even get to the point to find out if we're compatible in
right.
any areas because I'm completely turned off by that. Hopefully, that doesn't make me a shallow person, but you
A
know
little bit.
what you like. I don't appreciate that. But anyway, what I was going to say was people tend to act out of fear or love.
Right.
And here is what I petition other people, because I know I went through this when he was pursuing me, is many times women hesitate because of past hurts and fears, and I don't want to be hurt again, and this person cheated on me, or this person did this to me, and this person did that to me. You have to, before you even start dating, you got to deal with your baggage.
Yep.
You've got to unpack some stuff so you don't carry, I call it baggage or residue,
Mm-hmm.
into the relationship, so that when it is time to move forward, you're resistant to moving forward because you're so fearful.
Right.
And God is not giving us a spirit of fear, but of love, of power, and a sound
Sound mind.
mind.
Yes.
And so you should be at peace, and don't let the enemy try to throw things in the way to make you hesitate, but neither should you let your fears of, oh my goodness, I'm getting older and I don't want to wait that long. And because once you get in that thing, I mean, better to be single and happy than married and miserable. So you're better off working through some things, even if it's going to take some time. Let God work out the rest.
Mm-hmm.
But don't think that it's going to be perfect and that person's going to be necessarily perfect. They might be perfect for you,
Right.
but it doesn't necessarily mean like that whole 80-20 thing. 20% of the things they do might get on your nerves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes, and I'm being honest, sometimes people have passed up, whether it be a man or a woman, somebody who really could have been a good fit for you because you got hung up on little trivial things. Would you not say?
I agree.
All right. Me too, Rachel. Sorry.
Mm. So
She
I'm
must be talking about the mouth
all
situation.
right. So let me go to question number
Go
two, and
for
then
it.
you
Go
go
for
first
it.
on this one. Question number two is marriage a business contract or covenant or both?
Well, let me just say this.
Mm,
When I first think of marriage in
this
its
is a
biblical
good
sense,
one.
I think of a covenant
Mhm.
that God has created for a man and woman.
Okay.
And so, and that's why those of us who do believe in God and marriage is something that was created by him. It's something that's blessed and it's before witnesses. You're literally presenting yourselves before God and witnesses, this covenant that you have with this person.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And a covenant is not easily broken.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think of a contract, you think of something more man-made, something more signed, and okay, this is an official contract, but how do we get out of this contract? So I think my ultimate answer is initially it is a covenant. But when I think about the contract aspects of a marriage, I think about certain things that you might have to talk about and come to an agreement upon. Now, I mean, you may not be signing paperwork, unless you're doing a prenup or something, but in the spirit of a business, it's how are we going to run this family, and what are we agreeing upon, what are we not agreeing upon, who's going to do what, and how do we work so that this family works. Go
Okay.
for it.
Well, I think this is a great question because we have to look at it from both perspectives, the practical and the spiritual. Spiritually, we know that marriage is a covenant. God created marriage to be a covenant. It is a covenant between the two parties, the man and the woman, and God. That is a covenant, right? But we cannot deny or negate what the law sees marriage as,
Right.
which is a contract.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and if you think I'm lying, get divorced and you'll see. Because a whole bunch of stuff gonna be split. Assets and all those things are gonna be, split and negotiated and all that stuff. So from a practical standpoint, yes, it is. It's both. It's a business contract and it is also a covenant from the spiritual. But the as Rachel stated, those of us who are Christians, we don't go into marriage looking at it as a business. We go into marriage looking at it as a covenant because we we're creating this union to honor God, right? And we should not be getting into a union with another person for assets, for comforts, for social statuses.
Right.
If you are doing that, yours is not a covenant, it is a contract.
And here's the other thing. Let me add to that.
Mm-hmm.
In a business contract, if you, like, let's say you have a contract with a particular business, there are going to be times where, let's say that person's not satisfying the terms of that contract.
Mm-hmm.
In the business world, you'll be ready to cut it off.
And that's what we see.
And, that's what we see. And I think culturally, or shall I say just socially, people have gotten into the mindset of, well, if it doesn't work out,
Right.
then we'll just go our separate ways and not realize the work that it takes to actually fulfill the covenant and
Right.
keep that bond together. Because here's what's so deep to me as I think about marriage, this being my second one. Many times, the very things that a couple avoids and are so ready to depart from are the very things that you need to work on to refine your character so that you can go to the next level.
And that's that's the I think that's the beauty of the covenant. When we are in a covenant, the covenant requires us to grow individually, which makes the collective, the union, better. But when we are trying to avoid growing individually, we hurt the chances of the covenant being,
It weakens the bond.
it does.
It weakens the
And
bond.
so I think that is the issue that we have even in our regular societies. People are not marrying for the right reasons anymore. People are marrying for comfort, security, status, and all of these things. And that's why so because once they sign the paperwork, they've already secured certain assets and they're just waiting a certain length of time to get divorced
Right.
because they never were in it for love. They were never in it for the covenant of the marriage because I want to grow old with you and I want us to build a legacy. I want us to, they were not in it for that.
And look,
And so we have to be very, very careful when we look at this. And I know sometimes Christians only want to give us, give the spiritual aspect of
aspect
it
of
without
it.
looking at, okay, well, here's what man's law is doing now.
Right.
Because
Right.
when we see marriage now,
Right.
I mean, people are breaking up just to get half.
Have mercy. Or marrying so that they can
Right.
have that possibility
Right.
of that. And we
Right.
cannot forget the word says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his
Amen.
righteousness,
And all.
and all things shall be added unto you."
Mhm.
So I go back to that triangle where God is at the top,
Mhm.
and then the husband and wife are at the bottom corners of this triangle. And literally, if you seek God first, as you move towards God, you're moving towards each other.
Right.
And conceptually, it's a simple concept, but it's not always easy because as humans, we get off that track.
Yep.
And so I think just what you said is so key is, if you are seeking that relationship with God and doing your own work within yourself, you're going to move towards one another. When you let selfishness get in the way, that's when it goes immediately from a covenant to a contract. I'm tired of this. I want out.
Right. 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 Well, let's go to the third
And
question.
and we love the comments. Thank you so much. Keep them coming. We love to hear your perspective about, any of our questions that we're asking. Feel free to weigh in, and don't forget you can always come on in the living room.
Okay.
All right, babe. What should singles expect in their first year of marriage? Have mercy. That's a heavy one.
Well,
That's a heavy one.
we can't really answer that because that depends on the people.
Here's on the most basic level, I think we can.
Well,
Well, I
the
was
honeymoon stage.
Well,
and all
no,
that.
I was thinking any and everything,
Mhm.
but no, there are specifics based on your particular dynamics.
Right.
But here's what you expect. Your entire space is no longer your
Oh,
own.
yeah.
All right.
Not, not only that, you're gonna realize how selfish you actually
How selfish you are, right? Because think about it. If you've been by yourself for a
are.
while,
Yep.
you start to get really comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
There's this quote that I just absolutely love, and I really try to live by just to remind myself life begins outside of your comfort zone.
Mm.
And as long as you stay comfortable in this race that we call life, there's really not a whole lot of growth that's happening because you're not stretching yourself beyond that which you think you can go.
Mm.
And so when you get married, your space, even your mental space, you're no longer necessarily just thinking about yourself. And as you move through day in, day out, you're thinking about you and your significant other, your space in the bathroom, in the room. You might think it's good to have somebody laying next to you, and it is. However, what about those times that you just are used to being in your own, place and nobody is there to bother you?
Right.
Especially if that person is getting on your nerves.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Or maybe it's maybe not necessarily just getting on your nerves. Maybe you're used to quiet time when you first get home from work,
right.
and you walk in the door and somebody's talking. You like crap.
And they're not doing anything
right.
wrong.
They're not doing anything wrong. It's just that they're excited to see you.
Right.
And you're so accustomed to doing this specific set of things, and now they're disrupting what you are accustomed
Right.
to. And so those things can be challenging, and you experience those within the first,
Yeah.
we'll say first year, since that was the question. The question
Yeah.
says
And
what you expect.
let's not forget some of the things we talked about before, expectations.
Yeah.
You start to see some expectations set, and there's nothing wrong with expectations, but especially if you haven't talked about, there's a lot of talking that can and will go on before you get married, but just simple stuff that could be an unrealistic expectation that you might have of that person, and then resentment could set in.
Yeah.
So
all of those things are going to happen. What another good one I think will happen is you will start to realize, man, I didn't ask all the right questions. Because you'll start seeing stuff in your significant other that you didn't see before. Or you will the things that you did see, but you kind of wrote them off, will start to
We
magnify.
start to magnify. And
Right.
here's what I truly believe. And I've told my daughters this. I believe that the things that you were most attracted to about your spouse will start to get on your nerves
Right.
later on, because it's almost as if it becomes it gains more energy,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
whatever that thing is. And the reason why we're giving you, I don't want y'all to think, oh, we're giving all the negative, because I mean there are still some wonderful things, you know, for those of you who believe in you shouldn't have sex before marriage. You know, that's guilt-free sex that you get to have.
You said guilt free.
Guilt-free. I
Yeah,
mean,
our niece, she cracked me up with that one.
what's that?
Our niece Jill, she had
Oh,
me
she's talking about
laughing.
guilt-free. Yeah,
And
it's like,
the
wow,
walk of
I can
shame.
actually do this,
Yeah.
and this person is next to me. I have a companion. Let's talk about that. The companionship is huge. You know,
Right.
you're not at home by yourself, whether it be, you know, it's storming outside, it's bad weather, and okay, I have somebody here with me. Or you have issues at work, you got somebody that you can talk to about it.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason why we were giving you the other side of it, because we want to be very transparent about the real parts of what it feels like when you're just, and you've never lived together before,
Right.
and now
Right.
you're thrust into this
Yeah, because if
situation.
you've lived together, you've already seen the stuff.
Yeah, yeah. If you've lived together, you've seen it, and then you
Yeah.
still get married, you can't say you're surprised.
Right.
Angela said, she said expectations. Yep, that's a biggie. And she said it's hard to share a bathroom with a man when you lived on your own.
Right.
Women, sometimes we have a lot of products, a lot of stuff all over the place. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember one simple thing with Jimmy and I, and it was so funny. And to this day, me and my daughters laugh about it. You know, he was used to being by himself, and then he had LJ, and LJ was, you know, by the time we got married, LJ was almost 3, but pretty much it was LJ's younger age. He wasn't eating a whole lot. And I remember he'd be so shocked at how quickly the bread would go. But I'm like, babe, if you buy a loaf or two for a family of 5, then it's not going to go very far if you have people making PB&Js or taking loaves for sandwiches for lunch. And I'm like, you can't buy the same amount of loaves of bread for 5 people that you did when it was just 1.5, 1.5.
All of those dynamics change.
All of those dynamics, the grocery bill. It's like, wait a minute, we're spending this much. Well, you're no longer feeding just 1.5. We're feeding 5 mouths.
Right.
So there's a lot of different things that go into play as it relates to expectations for
And
the
things
first year.
and things that you're going to experience in that first year are they're endless. There's so many different things that you could experience. And let me just say this: just because we mention some things that may not sound all fluffy, doesn't mean it's bad.
Right.
Actually, you're in a good position because now you have a clearer understanding, a realistic understanding of what is likely to happen. And you can head most of it off at the pass.
And I will say this. Here is a biggie in the first year of marriage. You struggle with picking your battles,
Oh, yep.
because your first year of marriage, you find yourself bickering about, and I put the stupidest things in air quotes, because to one person it may not feel that stupid, to the other it may. But you find yourself kind of bickering about the smallest of things, and you don't even realize at the end of the day, like, does this really matter?
Will it make the
It
6 o'clock news?
Will it make the 6 o'clock news? Is the earth going to tilt on its axis?
Right.
Is this something that you're willing to ride or die on? Is this principle based, or is this
Preference.
a preference that you could
Yep.
really let go of?
Mhm.
And that's when you have to have those conversations within the first year of marriage. Like, babe, you know, this right here, this thing right here, I know it's not based on a principle per se, but it's very important to me.
Right. And see, that's my wife's favorite word, important to me, right? And so we got to be careful now. Just because it's important to you doesn't mean it's necessary. It is just, and look, if you look up the definition of preference, it is a strong liking.
Mm-hmm.
That's what preference is.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, because it's a strong liking, we'll make that thing a principle. And so, and it becomes so unreasonable in a lot of situations. Not saying that all, but again, when there are, like, for instance, there are some things that she feels is very important to her, don't really matter to me. I could do it. Not an issue. But then if there are some things that that are preferential to me, but are kind of out there for her, we should not have problems having that discussion, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
And again, so we have to be very, very careful when it comes to those principles and those preferences within the
Definitely.
first year of your marriage, because a lot of times, again, that strong liking, we will try to make that thing a principle, and it won't ever have legs,
Right. And
even though
let's
we
let's
try to
keep
give it
this in
legs.
mind, and we've talked about this before. When you're with your significant other, you do want to please them. So
Hmm.
there's nothing wrong, because I think somebody brought this up on one of our conversations. There's nothing wrong in giving them some of their preferences.
Right.
So
I agree.
if my husband told me this is a preference, but it's very important, then I should be in the state of mind where I want to, if I am capable of giving that or providing that or allowing that, whatever the case may be, then I should do that. So that word important should be important to both of us.
Mm.
The minute you hear your significant other saying this, it's like, wait a minute. Let me dial back a minute and see if this is something that I should do, simply just because I want to make them happy.
Right.
All right. So I think we've unpacked that one. I think
Question
you'll,
number 4.
all right. I
Here's
think
a good one.
this is for you to ask, honey.
How do you handle your differences of opinions? Very carefully.
Well, let me just say this. Let me just say this. If you were to ask us,
Very
um,
carefully.
and we're working on year 9 here,
Mhm.
that is still a day in, day out
Effort.
battle or effort or
Mhm.
struggle, whatever you want to call it. If we're being completely transparent,
Mhm.
we're alike on a lot of things, but we're different in some things. And so I have learned to literally either agree to disagree or just let it go. There are some things that if it's not something that, and I hate to keep using the terminology pick your battles, but I have to, in the grand scope of things, ask myself, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy?
Mhm.
And and for me, it's not even always about being right as it is. This is something that is important and can truly affect our future.
Mhm.
And so if it's something that he's feeling one way about politics, I'm just using this as an example,
Mhm.
and I'm feeling another way about politics, we may never meet in the middle.
Right.
It might just have to be somebody, you have to be mature. And I think we've talked about maturity. You have to be mature enough to say, you know what? We're not going anywhere with this. We're going in circles.
And that is literally, this question piggybacks on the whole concept of principle versus preferences. When you're talking about how do you handle your differences of opinion, listen to the word opinion. That's not fact. Those are preferences. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
None of us should be arguing with facts. I don't care who you are. If you're arguing against a fact, there is something wrong with us. You see what I'm saying? And so, but when we're talking about, that's why I say preferential things. Um, it, I don't like to put the tag of important on a preference. A preference cannot be important, because then it will taint what really is important. No, it's something I really, really want. Oh, okay, got you. You really, really want it, but it's going to hurt us if we do that. You
I
see what I'm
do
saying?
think we differ on that,
But
but I'll let that
but
one go.
but when we're talking about principles, I can back off of whatever my opinion was. She brings up an argument that is factual and it has legs. I can't go anywhere else with that one. But I think when we want to hold on to our guns, you
Mm-hmm.
know, it's hard to let go of our opinions.
And here's the thing, you have to learn your spouse,
Mm-hmm.
because there are just some conversations I have learned that I'm not going to have with him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because he's wrong or I'm right or I'm wrong and he's right. It's just that I already know, based on past history, this conversation is not going to go very far, simply because our opinions are just juxtapose each other.
Right.
So you really have to get to the point where you're asking yourself, and you don't want the same person always giving in, because it could be as simple as picking out stuff for the home. It could be as simple as having something to do with dinner, or chores at the house or what have you. That's not necessarily based on principles per
Right.
se, but it might still be important as it relates to the functioning of your home, or even, decisions that you're going to make about, in my opinion, I think we should go here for Thanksgiving. Well, in my opinion, I think we should go here, or
Mm-hmm.
we should go here for Christmas. So, and that's what I mean by it may not be life or death kind of conversation,
Mm-hmm.
but you got to have some give, you got to have some leeway, because what's going to happen is, if the same person keeps giving in, there's going to be resentment that's going to set in on the other person, like, wait a minute,
Absolutely.
last time we had this conversation, I was the one that, so there may even need to be conversation. And that's what I mean by, in a way, marriage could be like a business, because just like in a business, you have to learn how to work with other people,
And
even
negotiate.
and negotiate.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, tell you what, kind of like what we do. You, we went to Thanksgiving for your family. Let's go to Christmas for mine.
Right.
What do you think about that? Camille
Mhm.
just asked a question. She said, so who makes the ultimate decision?
Oh wow. That's well, for me that's easy.
Go for it. Answer the
Um
question.
uh, the head of the household makes the ultimate decision. And the Bible clearly states who the head of the household is in the context of marriage, and that would be the husband.
And let me just add to this, because I think there is a caveat to who makes the ultimate decision. Because there are things that Jimmy, as far as our household is concerned, he's been the one kind of heading up or spearheading.
Mm-hmm.
And there are things that I might have more knowledge about and I might be spearheading.
Mm-hmm.
So many times he might just be like, well, like we've discussed it. And he might be like, well, Rachel, whatever you agree on, because, you've been involved in this. And I might say the same thing to him. But I will say, as far as our relationship is concerned, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, all the big things like, are you moving here? Are you staying there? What do we need to do next as far as, this house or whatever the case may be? I usually will say, okay, Jimmy, what is it that you want to do? What do you think? What is you? And at the end of the day, even though with decisions like that, I defer to him, I find that when I do that, he ends up still wanting my feedback anyway.
Well, and I'm glad you said that, because when I see the question, who has the final say so, that comes into play when no one can make a decision. If that makes any sense.
Carla said, thanks for the caveat.
No one can make a decision. The head of the household has to make the decision if there's a decision that needs to be made.
I think that's a good point you just made.
Because you and I, as you just stated, we have the conversation about said thing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And we mill it over, we discuss it, which I personally believe that is the best method. I think that is the best method. And then there are certain areas, as you stated, where you have more of a knowledge base than I would. I have no problem going, hey, that's your area of expertise. You give me the pros and cons of that one, and we discuss it. Okay, let's do it that way. And vice versa. That's why it's easier for one to defer to the other, because we come into the thing saying, let's go to this table of reasoning and make this decision on this said thing.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and I gotta really make sure I make this point clear. You cannot let ego drive it.
Right.
Like, he can't let ego drive it. I
Mhm.
can't let ego drive it, because clearly the word says, I follow you as you follow Christ.
Right.
And it also talks about we submit to one another.
Mm-hmm.
The husband submits to the wife, and the wife submits to
people
the
don't
husband.
they don't read that script.
People don't read that. They always come quick with the wives must submit to their husband.
Right.
Got it. Got that part. But it also says you submit to one another.
Submit one to another. Yeah.
And so they don't realize it's even in those small things
Mhm.
where the times that my husband and I clash is when we're trying to get into each other's lane.
Mhm.
All right? And being in a lane is something of power. Like, when I say something of power, not like power to control, but it is a powerful thing because God has equipped you with whatever skill sets,
Mhm.
gifts to be able to do that. So you have to handle it properly. And so if I get in his lane or he gets in my lane, that's what's going to cause the dissension.
Right.
That's what will cause so many so many issues to arise when people can't humble themselves and say, you know what, you got this, and I know you got it, and that doesn't take anything away from me, and vice versa. Carla, you're
My
hilarious.
many years of law enforcement, I have never seen an accident where two cars didn't try to occupy the same space at one time.
You said never have you
I've
seen what?
never seen an accident where two cars did not try to occupy the same space at the same time.
Have mercy. Because they collided.
That's normally where accidents happen. So when we, even in our relationship, conflict happens when we choose to um, not be mature, or, like you said, impose on someone else's lane.
That's
You
right.
know, and I think that, a lot of times problems can be avoided immensely when we
Right.
choose to just cooperate.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with if the person is in their lane and you might see something ahead and be like, oh, babe, by the way, I know you got this, but I also found out this, this, and this. That might be important,
Mm-hmm.
as it relates to um, the road that you're traveling
Right,
here.
right.
You know what? Good looking out, because I didn't see that. That was in my blind spot.
There you go.
So that's where that constant banter of back and forth and working together. Camille, I hope we were able to answer that question for you. Let us know if you have another question as it relates to that.
All right. Well, number 5.
Jimmy is so deep, 2 cars in one space at one time. She got the thinking. It's a good example, honey.
Carla don't have any
All
sense.
right. Is this your question or mine?
That's yours.
Okay. What does compromise look like?
Mm.
Giving you what the other person wants or needs? What does that look like? How does
Mm.
compromise?
No, it's for you to answer. I was
No,
first.
baby. When I ask it,
No, baby.
don't patronize me. When I ask it, you answer. When you ask it, I answer
Oh, I
first.
should have been reading that question.
Because remember, you read. I read the first question, so I'm the odd. Yeah. So that's a question for you to answer first. Thank you.
Compromise looks just like it says to me. Okay, hey, um, this is what I want to do, but I'm going to listen to what you have to offer. And if I'm mature and your offer sounds better than mine, no matter what I wanted initially, I'm going to go with your offer. Or compromise sounds like this is not even worth arguing about. Let's just do whatever it is you would choose to do.
And I'm gonna piggyback off of that. But one of our comments, Carla is just a mess. She says, "What happened when you both wear glasses? Who has better sight?" I cannot. What's up, Betty? What's up? So glad to see you. I cannot with you, Carla. But to piggyback off of what you're saying, here's what compromise looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad we, have talked about this. I mean, I can't say we have it down pat because we don't.
Right.
But if you can recall, in several other conversations we have, there are three entities in your marriage. There's you, your husband, and then the relationship. Of
Right.
course, we have God,
Right.
overarching. But as far as like when it comes to you making decisions, um, your decisions, you should be thinking about what's the best for this marriage.
Yep.
So that should be on the backdrop of the compromise.
Right.
Because the compromise may not always mean you get anything out of it at all.
Right.
But because he got what he was asking for was best for the relationship,
We all benefited.
we all benefited, and that's what the compromise looked like.
That's what
Because
it should
let's
be
say
based on.
let's say you only have one slice of pizza, right? And that one slice would satisfy each person by themselves. If I ate the whole slice, it's going to satisfy me. If he eats the whole slice, it's going to satisfy him. You might be thinking, well, just split the pizza in half. Well, if we split it, we're both still hungry.
Right.
So just because we've compromised doesn't mean we're satisfied.
Right.
And so I just use that analogy to explain that sometimes it might require somebody just, taking that high road, or just taking that road that's like, you know what? Even though this is what I want right now, this is what's best for the relationship if he gets it.
Right.
Does that
Right.
make sense?
Makes perfectly good sense to me. Makes perfectly good sense to me. All right. Let's go to this next question.
And if you guys have any questions about that, go ahead and shoot
When
them out.
should you call it quits?
Whew, I almost feel like that should be the last question.
That's gonna be the next to the
It's
last.
gonna be, it's gonna be.
When should you call it
Ooh, let me tell
quits?
y'all something. Let me tell you something.
When should
When
you?
should you call it quits? I'm trying
Yes.
to remember. I make sure I remember the 4 A's.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when I mention these 4 A's, I'm not gonna say. I'm not gonna sit here and say that there have not been marriages that have not survived these 4 A's. However, that red flag, that indicator, those indicators, um, addiction, adultery,
Mm-hmm.
abandonment, and there's another one: addiction,
Abuse.
abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, baby. I know two of them start with an AD and two of them start with an AB.
Mm-hmm.
Those things, when those things are in place, first of all, that's the first like, woo woo, uh-oh, this is serious. There needs to be an intervention. We need help.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was to say that would be the first thing you want to look at.
Mm-hmm.
And I could speak to this because I did call it quits in my first marriage. However, and I had children by the
Well,
time.
they're not married yet.
Right. But I'm just saying I'm gonna give them the principle
Gotcha.
of what I use to call it quits. You follow
Okay.
me?
Mm-hmm.
So what I made sure, because I had children, I made sure that there was no stone that was left unturned as it related to saving my marriage. Let me explain to you what I meant. A, do I have my life in order? While I'm worrying about whatever my spouse is doing, what am I looking like spiritually?
Mm-hmm.
Am I giving what I'm supposed to be giving in this relationship?
Mm-hmm.
And am I staying connected to God so that I can hear his voice? That was huge for me. As my children are watching, once they get older, am I behaving in such a way that when they ask me, why'd you leave daddy? I could clearly, comfortably, unequivocally tell them without getting into details, but making sure that when I speak to them, there would be no extra questions like, well, mom, why didn't you go to counseling? Well, mom, did you pray about it? Well, mom, did you fast about it? Well, mom, did you seek counsel? All those things were crossed because sometimes people give up and they haven't sought any type of help
Mm-hmm.
or counsel because it just hurts. And y'all, if I'm just being honest, sometimes it does just hurt.
Right.
Sometimes in marriages, it hurts like nobody's business.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel like, how am I going to get from up under this?
Right.
Or Lord, what have I done? But I'm telling you right now, that doesn't have to be the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason why at this point that I ended up not staying married, because at the end of the day, I'm only in control of one person. You can't make someone meet you at the point where you feel like you want to be met. So you have to make sure before you call it quits. And at the end of the day, God, you have to have that peace from God. Were you going to say something, baby?
Okay, so I'm gonna answer this from the perspective
said,
of
"Partner, you outta
single
here."
people, right?
Okay.
You're not married yet, okay? You're dating and you're trying to determine if this is a person you
Okay.
should marry. When do you call it quits? You know, if you're in that scenario, you covered if you got married, and you covered that.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I
I'm
thought
gonna
that was the
cover.
question. Yeah, that's
I'm
good.
gonna cover because they're single, they ain't married yet. So
Yeah,
when
but
do
I
you
thought
call
they
it?
were wondering, like, when
Right.
you do get married, when would you
Well,
call
well,
it quits?
let's cover it from the single perspective. We already talked about it. If
Mhm.
you see during the course of your dating or courtship that you're not compatible, it doesn't matter how you feel. Quit. Walk away. It's better to do it now than to say I do.
Give them some examples of we're not compatible.
Well, the deal.
a particular
for
area.
instance, when I talked about those 5 areas, we talk about, let's just say you're trying to walk the Christian walk, but you done hooked up with a person that ain't walking no Christian walk.
Okay. A
Um,
Gentile.
how how you think that's gonna work out? You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
You trying to be financially literate, and you got a person that's just financially illiterate and not trying to be literate. I mean, those are pressures that are only going to magnify as time progresses
Ooh,
unless that person decides to change. And why are you going to play Russian roulette? You don't know when they're going to decide.
ooh, and let me insert something here
Mm-hmm.
because this is key to what he's saying. Because there are some relationships where it does take time to, but if you don't see growth,
Right.
I'm an educator. I'm all
Exactly.
about growth measures because you're not always going to see, and it's like that in marriage too.
Mm-hmm.
You're not always going to see what it is that you're wanting to see, but don't
Immediately.
immediately,
Right.
but either side will hurt you. Don't one or two times, oh, I ain't seeing it. Well, that's it.
Right.
This
No.
ain't worth it.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Neither.
Right.
You've been in that relationship for 2 years and you haven't seen not even an iota of growth. And the only time you see growth is when they feel like there's a threat that you might bounce.
Leave. Right. Then that's manufactured.
Then that's manufactured.
Right. So let me finish my answer.
Go for it. I just want to throw in that little
So
caveat.
so these are areas of compatibility. If you don't see them, you have to, because sometimes we let our emotions take over too soon before we know enough and before we've experienced enough with these people.
Yes.
And then we are, I love her, I love him.
And you add sex
And-
in that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's a wrap.
Let me
That's
okay.
a wrap. Go on,
I'm
say
about
it,
to
baby.
go.
Go
I'm-
on, go
I'm-
on.
let
Go on
me
there.
just say this.
Ooh, watch out now. Let me get some water.
Typically, the people that ain't good for you can lay it down.
Mm. Did y'all hear what he just said?
I'm
On
just
this
saying
Christian
to you.
show.
I'm just saying it to you. So don't get caught up in how you're feeling and how they make you feel. Cause guess what? There are people out there who
Mercy.
know what to do to make you feel whatever they need you to feel to keep
Mm-mm.
doing whatever they want to do. But those areas of compatibility are the things that's going to stress your relationship the most. So if you are single and you see those areas or you're not compatible, now is the best time to walk away because you're not in a covenant now. You're not even in a contract now. Walk away. You know what I'm saying? Yes, you're going to have to get over your little withdrawal symptoms, but guess what? You'll be much better for it because what you're doing is you're maturing and you're starting to identify sooner than later what is good for you and what is not good for you. And so the sooner we can identify those things, the better protected we are against foolishness is what I like to call it.
And sex will cloud your mind.
It sure will.
It will cloud your thinking, your decision making, just like you said,
Mhm.
because you're so busy caught up in your feelings. And this thing it's not even close to about feelings. It's about, like we said, principles. Did you see what Dolores said? She agreed with you for the first time.
Dolores who?
It's a waste of your time and energy.
Dolores
She
who?
says she has lived and she learned. Camille threw up the deuces. Listen.
Dolores Nixon.
And let me
Ugh.
let me say something while
First time I agree with Jimmy.
you marinating on Dolores. Let me just say this, and it has to do with reasons why people still hang in there. Sometimes when you know your worth, you say, I don't get me wrong. I know I've invested in this, but I understand and know my worth. And right now, my worth is not valued. And I have to make that decision. And I think you made a very good point when you said it's going to be tough, especially if you used to texting that person, y'all used to talking, the companionship.
Right.
Remember I told y'all a while back, beware of the demon of companionship. And when I say that, it means you would rather stay in a relationship just to have somebody and to feel somebody is there, but that relationship is unhealthy.
You say
and
the
it is
demon of
toxic.
relationship.
The demon of
Companionship.
companionship.
I say the demon of
Come on now, come with it. Come with it.
you're just accustomed to having them there.
Yeah,
Familiarity.
That's familiarity and companionship.
You know how it is when we were growing up. Oh, that's my home girl because y'all from the same city and y'all may gone to the same high school.
Don't get caught up.
Right.
Don't drink the Kool-Aid. That's the bottom
Listen,
line
at
there.
the end of the day, singles, if you all don't hear anything, because see, you all in a much better position now than you would be if you mess around and say I do
And
to
get
the
into
wrong
that
person.
covenant.
Right. So listen, if that person has shown you over a period of time, I call them patterns of behavior.
That's right.
Listen, if you want to predict what a person gonna do tomorrow, look at what they did yesterday and the days before that. Now you can almost guarantee what they're gonna do the following day. because they've already showed you what their patterns of behaviors are.
That's right.
It's two types of people you got to trust. You got to trust the one that shows you a pattern of behavior, and you have to trust the ones that are fickle. I don't fool with fickle people, and I don't fool with people that show me their true nature. If you, this kills me.
What's that?
And I talk about this a lot with my coworkers when we'll be discussing a certain individual who has caused nothing but hell at our workplace, right?
Uh-oh.
But because they are friends with them, they'll go, well, she ain't all that bad, or he ain't all that bad. The devil's a lie. You know what I'm saying? No, just because they ain't done it to you yet, don't mean they good. You
That's
know what I'm
right.
saying?
And I do like
you have to look at the evidence. Look at those areas of compatibility. Trust me when I know this is going to be difficult, but hear me when I tell you. The Bible calls it equally yoked, but in the counseling arena, it's called areas of compatibility. They're the same thing. See, but Christians have only made it sound like if they ain't Seventh-day Adventist, or if they ain't Christian,
if they ain't Baptist,
right?
Yeah.
No, it's all of those. It wasn't limited to just your religious preferences. It was the whole gamut. The family. If you hook up with a person that don't like family and you love your family, you don't think that's gonna be a problem?
You
at some
actually
point?
just went where I was gonna say, which was you got to watch how they are around their family.
Yeah, man,
how
you
are they
better watch
treating
how they
their
are around
mom,
everybody,
their dad, their parents, their siblings? You know, if they're easy to cut off their siblings, they might be easy to cut you off.
What?
Like you have to watch, kind of remove the emotions from it, and scale that thing down, skin it down to what it really, the bare bones of what it is.
Amen.
All right.
Last
so,
one.
Last one. We're doing good at 6:56, and we on question number 7.
Look at that.
Camille, your people did a wonderful job.
Yeah,
I
these
would
questions
love for
were
you to give them
amazing.
some feedback that we really enjoyed these conversations. Last question is a 2-part question.
Mm-hmm.
When should your children meet your future spouse?
Mm-hmm.
How do you handle the process to make the transition easier?
Mm.
Well, the good thing about it is we have been
answered
there.
the question already.
Yeah, well, we've been there, done that, because we are a blended family.
Right.
You know, here's the I asked it, so you.
Whoa.
It was an odd number question, baby.
Okay, there you go with your
Come
odd and
on.
even. All right. When should your children meet your future spouse?
Mhm.
Key word is once you determine that this is going to be your spouse, you should start integrating the relationship between that person and your children. Because here's what you don't want is to keep that person all isolated and they only sparingly see your children and there is no chemistry there. Because a relationship has to be built between that person coming into your household with your children and vice versa, you coming into their household if they're children. And as the adults, we have to be the most intentional because the moment, first of all, the kids kind of deduce, okay, this person is around a lot, and if you're not creating scenarios where you can see your children interacting with his children or her children or him interacting with your kids and you interacting with his kids, what you're essentially doing is playing Russian roulette. You're like, okay, well, when we say I do, we just gonna come together.
Right.
And it's all gonna work out.
Right.
Well, no, actually you have to, look at it like a sports team. It doesn't matter if you have, let's just say it's a basketball team. It doesn't matter if you have 5 superstars, but if you have not practiced with those 5 superstars,
watch out now.
And everybody understands their positions and their role on that team, it's going to be chaos when game time comes.
There goes another analogy for you. That's a good one.
So we have to be intentional about merging those things long before we say I do.
And let me add a little caveat to that too. Oh, my mind just went blank really quick. But when you are in a situation where, because some people are like, well, I don't want to just introduce them to just anybody. If you're just casually dating, don't. If you have to, I always say you have to first establish, is this a creep or not? And yes, I did use the word creep. And when I say creep, I'm just saying, does this person check off the boxes based on your time with them? Is this somebody, think about, when you have children, you want to protect them, right? And so if you want to protect them, you're not just going to introduce them to just any old body or have them in a position where any old body can come into contact with them. However, I'm not saying you should wait. I agree completely with what you're saying. Just when you see that this person seems like our moral compass is on the same track, we want the same things, there is compatibility.
We're talking
Then,
about marriage.
then right, then you can do that. But let me just say this: be very, very careful when it's a delicate situation with the children, and the children are still dealing with a lot of pain as a result of the prior relationship with their dad or their mom.
Right.
Because what happens is when you introduce too soon, I'm not saying they're not going to have issues anyway, because at the end of the day, all kids, it don't matter what happened um in the relationship between you and that person, that's still their daddy, that's still their mama. And so you have to be so careful as to like, well, I'm going to move on with my life. Just because you've gotten over it doesn't mean the children have gotten over it. So you got to really, and for me, it really was a matter of listening to God as to, is it time? Because I was dating long before I finally was dating Jimmy, but I knew how my girls were. I'm like, it's not time for me to introduce them to anyone yet because they're still healing. And once I felt like it was time, that's when I did it. But you shouldn't wait a long time. Like you've fallen in love with this person and now you're introducing them to your children and things are clashing. Things are not working out.
Mhm.
The kid, there are some things that you noticed about that person now that they are around children. They don't know how to talk to children. They don't know how to handle your children and vice versa. So yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying.
Well. Let me to that
Carla's
thing.
so funny.
I do believe when we talk about those areas of compatibility again, when I said
Mm-hmm.
one of them is social, are you socially compatible?
Right.
You all should have had these conversations anyway about children and how you discipline and all the. None of these things should be a total surprise to you. You see what I'm saying?
Definitely.
So, and you should have been observing this person with their kids anyway. Because I'm gonna
If
tell
they
y'all
have
something.
kids.
Listen,
Mm-hmm.
I dated prior to Rachel, and I dated somebody I knew good and well that person and I were not going anywhere based on how I saw that individual dealing with the kid. I was like, oh no, no, I know I couldn't live in this house. We could not abide under the same roof
Right,
because
right.
of certain things I saw. Now, so I instantly started disconnecting emotionally. You know what I'm saying? Because it was like, okay, this is not going to work. We can't allow how we feel to negate the things that are going to become challenging in our future.
Right.
So that's why when you talk about when should you introduce the if you guys have gone through the courting process, you've talked about marriage, you've talked about family, you've talked about discipline, you've talked about finances, you all are compatible. And you both have now started discussing about relationships. At this point, you should start integrating each other's children into the equation
Right. But
to
here's
see how things are going to mesh.
right.
And then, listen, let me just say this too. You could do everything right as the parents, and sometimes it still may not mesh with the kids.
Right. And here's what's a biggie. You can't be so invested in the relationship
Right,
that once you do introduce them to your children and things like deep in your spirit, things are not right.
right,
But you're so in love with this person, you've fallen head over heels that you're not willing to abandon ship.
right. And again, that
That is
goes
serious.
yes, that goes back to
Yes.
making the decision before you say I do, before you make this covenant, right?
Right.
So again, if you focus on those areas of compatibility 1st,
Mhm.
with the spiritual, the financial, the physical, the emotional, the social, all of those things, you focus on those first. See if those things mesh, right? And again, don't focus so much on how they make you feel, cuz what if your feelings are dysfunctional?
Right.
And so now y'all are compatible. You see it. You see we're compatible.
Mhm.
But now you start introducing each other to your children, and you see that there's a clash. Not because, let's just say it's not because your children are rejecting them. Maybe you just see that they don't handle things in the best way that it could be handled. I'm not saying abandon ship immediately. I'm saying now go back to the drawing board. Hey, let's talk about how we discipline our kids and how we talk to our children, how we want that to look. You know what I'm
There
saying?
has to be constant
Right.
communication.
You all talk about that. But if you see that this person is not willing to change, walk away.
And this is anytime we talk about blended families, this is a huge piece for me because I've seen it not happen, and it's been detrimental to the
Yes.
kids, like where they end up having so many issues with that one parent who felt like you didn't listen to me or you didn't care about the way I felt. Yes, it is your relationship, but you don't have the freedom that you once did when you were just single with no children.
Amen.
They
Right.
should be considered. You have to honor their heart. And
Mhm.
when I say honor your heart, while I was dating him, I had conversations with my daughters. Like one of them, the youngest one, who's always the one who's like, whatever mom wants, I'm good with it. By the time I started dating Jimmy, it's like, okay, I got my mom to myself and I'm good with that. But what I had to get her to understand is you're not losing me. So
Right.
it's like I had to constantly pour into them to let them know that I'm not going to let this affect your stability, your emotional stability. It's okay. And I navigated that. Yes, he developed a relationship with my children, but I always made sure that I was kind of the gatekeeper of them as it relates to, because I had that relationship with them already.
Right.
Just like, his son was younger, who's now our son, but he was much younger. So it was a little easier for that gel to happen.
Well, and to back to that blended family and how that should take place. Once, we had that conversation, my goal was to help them understand that you're not losing something, you're gaining something.
Right.
So not only are you going to have whatever love and space that you have with your mom, you're also going to have that too with your bonus dad now.
Right.
And so that was my intention. That has been my intention since day one. And I think that if we look at it from those perspectives, we can go into this thing with getting a better outcome.
And everybody must be authentic. At the end of the day, when you're meeting children, what have you, be your authentic self. That way, when you get together, it's not like, who's this guy? Because when he was married, my mom, he was saying all these things, and now he's turned into a hellion, So you just got to be authentic. But we really enjoyed this conversation with you guys. I don't know if you had anything to say. Thank you so much. People were saying this was such a good conversation. I really hope that my single people got something from this. Of course, my married people, you're always here with us and supporting us. We appreciate you.
Camille, you are the bomb as usual.
Bomb.com.
Thank you so much for reaching out to the singles and getting these questions. I think they were very, very good questions. There are a lot of common questions as well, because going into a arena where you're not used to it, or even if you've tried it and it didn't work out, you're kind of fearful, and you want the information on how can I do this better the next time, or how can I do this right the first time.
And that's how you get rid of fear.
Right.
Is by being informed. It's about being connected, and it's not easy. We're not even going to sit here and say there is a surefire, clear cut. At the end of the day, the bare bones. She says next time she's coming in the living room.
I'm going to put this up so everybody can see it and be a witness. Camille said the next time I'm coming into the living room.
Yes, thank you.
We are definitely looking forward to that.
That's right.
Camille.
We can't operate out of our fears. Jimmy and I, when we first started doing this, I wouldn't say we were fearful because we weren't, but we didn't necessarily always know what to expect. And you get more and more comfortable when you talk to people.
Right.
But what I was just going to say about relationships, period, at the end of the day, make sure God is at your foundation, your relationship with him. Be a whole person, yourself. Because, Camille, I saw one of your posts and I was like, yes, because I like to hear it. You got to be 100%, and that person has to be 100%, not 50-50. That way, when you do get together, y'all are working on 200%, and there's enough surplus to go around. Not people are coming in halfway and so broken that they can't even give of themselves properly in a relationship.
Well, before we close, I love how God works in his own special way. So I just want everybody to see this. And this is why obedience is better than sacrifice.
Yes.
Charlene Hunter said this. She says, this showed up in my timeline at the perfect time. I was getting ready to reach out for advice regarding marriage.
Well, praise God.
Praise God that Rachel, you listened to God to do this particular subject. And Charlene Hunter, we pray that you got something out of this. And we are a resource. If you would love to reach out to us and maybe talk one-on-one, we can definitely do that if you would. You can just inbox us on Facebook and just let us know that you would like to have a conversation one-on-one, and we can definitely be a resource for you.
Definitely that. And don't forget, you can tell your friends, your family, and Charlene, we have tons of videos.
Yes.
Here as well as on YouTube. The Relationship Real Talk Show is on YouTube. And so, I mean, what a wonderful world we live in as it relates. There's a lot going on, but we can't say we don't have resources.
Amen.
We can't say there are not things out there to help us and support us with our relationships.
Well, guys, again, thank you all so much for joining us on Relationship Real Talk. And until next week, peace.
Y'all have a good one this week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.